Hello, degenerates, and welcome back to a review. It's been a while since I've actually done one of these, but this one's going to be a little bit different. So I do got to preface this before we get into today's topic, which is going to be The Last of Us 2. Now, I did not play the game. The main thing that I was really curious about this game in particular was more on the narrative side of things, because that's where I heard just basically all the issues coming up with this. So, what I actually did for this game was I did watch the entirety of a playthrough for this one. So, I at least know pretty much everything that happens. I know everything that happens in the story, and I watched like most of the extras. So, if the playthrough that I watched just happened to not have them, then maybe I missed some small details, but overall, I pretty much know everything that goes on in the game and in that story. I'll have a link to the description of which playthrough that I watched. They did a really good job of just going through the whole thing. It was no commentary or anything like that, and they pretty much got to like all the points as quickly as possible. But there are some things though. So when I was watching it, if there was just not really any interesting action going on, basically what I would do is I would skim through the entire video and then find where the next dialogue or like the next cutscenes would happen, and then I would jump to there. But let's do some spoiler-free stuff beforehand before I talk about spoilers, because there's really no way to talk about my thoughts on everything without getting there. But at first, we'll address some of the controversies, because like obviously this thing got reviewed bombed like crazy, and everybody was angry about a lot of different things. Some of it definitely completely justified, like Naughty Dog treating their employees terribly. That was absolutely terrible. That was actually the main reason why I did not want to buy and support this game, was because of all like the development troubles that this thing was going through, and specifically them abusing their employees. That is just a practice that I do not want to support in any capacity at all. So with that, I didn't want to support it. And then I also remember hearing a lot of people just have an issue with the narrative, with the way that things are presented and all that. And after watching it, actually, I don't think a lot of those things were justified. I'll talk about like some things that I know would make people angry, some things that wouldn't. But it's like some important stuff to get out of the way is there was a lot of things about like the LGBT representation in here. And overall, I thought they actually did a really, really good job with that. Like nothing felt like cheap, nothing felt forced in or hammered in. Most of the people saying that are just kind of saying that just because like they hate LGBT people, and like, that's them. They can suck for that. But no, overall, like, there is a trans character. I felt like they handled that very well. And of course, Ellie, she's in a lesbian relationship with Dina, and I thought that was handled very well too. So overall, really good representation on it. There was even like a really, really wholesome tweet that I saw where like somebody was like watching it and they were like, oh, like he had a sibling where it's like she was lesbian, and it's like, he didn't prove it at first, but like after he went through that, he just like realized like, yeah, my prejudice was kind of baseless and all that stuff. So representation does matter, and from what I can I think they did a really good job with it here. And hopefully people that do pick it up that they might have those prejudices before, hopefully this will help change that around for them. So no qualms on that. I don't really have an issue with the story itself either. But like kind of one of the main things you'll hear from most people that are playing this without being reactionary about it is they probably could have done a better job of sequencing the events and then like probably editing it down. And I think this would have become a much stronger narrative and story because of that. So those are the things that I gathered from that. I'll talk about those in spoilers, and I'll make sure I announce my warning when that happens. The other thing too, gameplay wise, from everything that I saw, this is The Last of Us 1 all over again. So if you did not like the gameplay of The Last of Us 1, you're not going to really find anything new to enjoy here. There are a couple of things though. Most of the levels seem to have more ways that you can approach them. They feel a little bit bigger, a little bit more open from what I can gather. And there's like one section where it's a bit more open world, so it's kind of like you have like all these different areas that you're running through and exploring. From what I can tell, it still kind of drives you down in a linear path, so it's like you still have to hit these story beats, but like you are going in an open world area for one section of the game. But outside of that, then it basically devolves into everything that you were familiar with from the first game. Also, the AI does seem to be a lot better. Like the way they move seems to be a little bit more realistic on how they would react to certain sounds, like when you do the distractions by throwing a brick or a bottle. I also really do like the dialogue that they have between these characters, or just like a lot of the enemies in general, to just like kind of like make them for like they're just kind of people there, which is like one of the themes. It's just everybody there's just kind of a person at this point. So that's something that they have. I know they're supposed to make you feel bad for the dogs, and I did not see the playthrough I watched. They did not kill any dogs, so I did not get to see what happens when that happens in particular. So shouts to defending the dogs. I would not encourage you to do that, but apparently it's something that's in there. But I personally did not witness how all that works. There was something else I wanted to say. But yeah, no, like overall, this was my impression from the way that the game works. I think the first 2 hours are pretty good. It starts off very strong. A lot of things are happening. Things move pretty fast. And then the next like 6 to 8 hours, I think it kind of just meanders. There's not too much going on. You're just kind of going through gameplay segments, and you just kind of have characters bouncing off each other. So it's not like there's not a lot of like development and growth having that period. It's just like if you like decent banter, that's kind of what's going on there. And then if you like the gameplay, it's that. There after that, then it's like there's a whole big switch up that happens. And I think from that point on, in my personal opinion, I think that's when it gets a lot better, because it's like basically the whole meandering part kind of has a lot more context thrown into there, and it's just like a lot more purposes given to everything that's going on there. And then it's just like towards the end, just everything builds up like to quite a lot. And then like I think like when you get like to that part, I think that's like the best part of the game. There's like one part where there's like a whole like village on fire, and it's super super tense. Like, towards like that like whole part where I said like it was kind of like boring and meandering. That's where I found myself like skipping the most of watching the gameplay. But like as it got like deeper and deeper, more progressive on, it was just like it was exciting. It was exhilarating to watch like everything that was going on there, and it's like. I at that point I did care about a lot of the characters that were in there, and it's just like I felt more invested in them. Like, at any point, anything could happen to any of them. And I think that's one thing that this game does very well. It's just like, at any point something bad could happen to these characters. So at a certain point, like, even if you're not playing, you do want to watch like every bit and make sure that like, okay, they're okay and all that stuff. The other thing too is like, I think early on, the level design isn't too interesting. But then when you get to that later half, the level design becomes a lot more varied. Like there's one part where they're going through an arcade that's really neat. They kind of do just like a lot more interesting setups and a lot more interesting locations that you're into. Like for example, like the village that's on fire, I think they do a pretty good job with that one. The arcade that I mentioned. There's this really cool segment where you're going between all these different rooftops and all that stuff. And I think those things were done super, super, super well. So yeah, like overall, from what I could tell, I think like if I was playing it, it probably would be like a 7 out of 10 experience overall. Um, it's like gameplay wise, it doesn't really add anything. Narratively, because this takes place after the setting of the first game, I think it was always going to be less interesting no matter what. And what I kind of mean by that is this. So with the first Last of Us game, it takes place like right as soon as the outbreak's happening. A little bit's gone by, but it's like a really weird transitional period. I don't feel like you see as much media like cover that weird transition period. Most of the time when you get into like post-apocalyptic scenarios, it's like either when the thing is like first breaking out, or like after like the world has just been ruined for a very, very long time. Like, like your Mad Maxes, The Road, I Am Legend, things like that. Where like the first one took place like, okay, we got past the initial outbreak, but now there's this weird transition period where like, the government's still there. There's all these factions that are trying to save the world and all that stuff. And, at this point, everything is like very much like a hopeless scenario. So it's like kind of like most regular apocalyptic things. And because of that, it's like this just focuses on a way more character-driven personal story. Pretty much like the main theme of everything of this one is revenge. So it's not like an original story, but like I think they do a really good job of like carrying it out and then like just fleshing out everything for the entirety of it. But it's like it's not the Schindler's List of video games. Like I do think like that was a really dumb comparison that they had. Like people like tune their own horns like crazy, I think is really dumb. Like the super 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 absurdly high praise this game is getting, I definitely don't think is deserved. However, I think this is a very solidly crafted game. The animation is absolutely beautiful in this game. Like whenever they're doing like playing the guitar sequences, just a lot of like attention to detail is like thrown in there, and it's just like a lot of like, especially the performances of the characters too. Like the voice acting is top notch. The way the camera movements like capture like the little like details on their face and everything. They did an extremely good job with that. Sound design was very, very, very good too as well. So, like, presentation wise, not too much I would say, like, they really did bad. I would just say overall, because of the setting itself, I don't think a lot of the visuals are too unique for the most part. Like, outside of the few villages that you go through, or the few settings that are kind of cool to walk around. Like, it's just one of those games where it's like, it's sort of reality, and they just kind of ruin it a little bit. Like, it's pretty, but it's not going to stick out as much as your head as like something like Persona 5 would, or something like that. Like, it's something that's not like stylized, like it's meant to look real. And I always think to a degree that's going to just sort of hold you back. And it's like, it kind of translates even over to creature designs. It's like, it kind of looks like any other Flood character that we've had in the past. Like, the clickers are cool and all that, but it's like, the bloated ones, not too different from something you'd see in like Dead Space or like, Halo and all that. And I just think that could just kind of all finds itself running under the same umbrella. So yeah, it's kind of a weird thing to say about this game. I don't know if I'd like recommend you guys go out and pick it up, but I would definitely say a lot of the hate that this game got was entirely undeserved. The studio deserves all the hate that they got for like the way they treated their people and the way they're tooting their own horn, and probably paid off all the reviewers and all that stuff. Like that's deserved. But like, in terms of like what the story offers and all that, I do think it's gotten a lot of like unnecessary hate and a lot of mischaracterization of things that happen in the script. So with that said, like, if you want some good like LGBT representation, I would definitely say, go pick this up, especially if you have some people that like don't like are kind of like prejudiced and all that stuff. This might be a worthwhile pick to go through. It's very easy to pick up, play, and digest. And I think for those people, it's probably a worthwhile pickup. If not, buy a used copy of it or something like that if you wanted to see the continuation of the first game and all that. That is the other thing. Do not play this game without playing the first one. You're not going to really care about anything unless you did play the first game. You very much so need to play that game in order to fully understand the context of the characters in here and everything that's going on. So, with all of that said, we are now in spoiler territory. So yeah, the first 2 hours of the game, the things that I think are the most interesting in the beginning is like, you're playing Ellie, new village and all that stuff. And then, within the first 2 hours, you play a little bit of this new character named Abby. And in the very beginning, she kills Joel. And, if you played the first game, you probably should realize at this point that she was with the Fireflies, which was the group that was going to create the vaccine that was going to cure everything, because Ellie is immune to the whole virus that is out there. So, I don't know why people like think Joel's a good character. Like, at least a good person. That's what I should emphasize. He's a good character, but like, yeah, that guy's terrible. Like, he's one of the most awful human beings out there. Like, sure, he's reconnecting with like his dead daughter and everything through Ellie and all that. But you have to keep in mind, he doomed the entire human race and like massacred a crap ton of people. Like, he was a mercenary smuggler, and then like, he just murdered everybody in that like hospital. And a lot of those people were the people that could theoretically find a vaccine through Ellie. And now that those are all gone, and probably a lot of the supplies got destroyed too, it's like there's close to no hope for the rest of humanity. He literally doomed humanity at that point. Of course, there's always something else that could turn up where like, they might be all right and all that stuff. But like, yeah, no, he completely screwed them over. And yeah, a lot of people have a very good reason to be pissed off at him and probably want him dead at that point. So honestly, like, yeah, it's really no shock that he just dies. This is one thing at one point I will agree with a lot of people though. So after those first 2 hours, you play Ellie and you are going to seek out Abby to get revenge on Abby and all that stuff. Because like, Ellie does see Joel die right in front of her face, like brutally to a golf club and all that stuff. And then Abby and the party she's with let her live, and Tommy, who's Joel's brother. So the next like 6 to 8 hours, you play as Ellie, and you're just kind of going through. Dina decides to go with you because they're girlfriends now and all that stuff. But like, not too much happens. You find some of the people, you kill them, and you're just like mercilessly killing like Wolves, which is like the new, it's like the Washington Liberation Front, I think is the name of it. And then Scars, which is like this like religious cult organization. But you're mostly dealing with the Wolves. Scars come a little bit later. So you're just going through killing them. There's not too much happening. You're just getting a lot of like chemistry between Ellie and her, and they're just kind of finding their targets and killing them. And that's really what's going on through that. So not too much. And it's like, Ellie's getting like Throughout this, you kind of see like Ellie fall apart more mentally as a person because like she has to go through like more like crazy things. She has to like get more personal, kill them, and then especially the last two people, which is like Mel and Owen. Like she ends up going there by herself because like Dina ends up being pregnant at one point and stays back, and like she kills Mel, who is a pregnant nurse, and then kills Owen as well. Like once she realizes like I'm just killing like families of people, like that's when like more shock starts to go into her. She gets PTSD because like she sees a pregnant woman she killed, reminds her of Dina and all that stuff. So it's like humanity falling apart at all that point. But then once that happens, you switch to playing for Abby for basically the second half of the game. So her story takes place at the same time. So it takes place before they get to Joel, and then after Ellie has already, and then up to where Ellie kills Owen and Mel. So you get to learn about like Abby's relation with like her father, because her father was the surgeon that was going to make the vaccine by like unfortunately having to kill Ellie and all that stuff, and then. So that's the main reason why she wants to kill Joel and all that stuff. And then throughout it, it's like, her relationships with all of her teammates. So like all her teammates there basically die by Ellie's hand. And then also Jesse, which is like this Asian guy that dies at one point. And then basically, you get to learn their dynamic. You get to learn like their reasons for doing things and all that stuff. And it does a really good job of like grounding and humanizing them. However, I do agree with the mindset that if you played as like Ellie and Abby and you were just kind of like going back and forth between the two and without like really knowing who Abby was, then I think that would have made for probably a much stronger narrative. Because like with the leaks getting out, like people that really like Joel and him dying, that was definitely probably not the best thing to hear, especially if you're a big fan of the first game. Because like in the first half of the game, you do get flashbacks to Joel and Ellie, like when she was younger and all that stuff, and like some of their things that they go on. So you do get to play with Joel and as Joel for a little bit. And early on in the game, those are easily the strongest points of the game because it's like, their relationship is really good. They bounce off each other very well. It's very organic, very natural. And like one thing that's really nice about like one scene is like for Ellie's birthday, Joel takes her to like a science museum because she's never seen dinosaurs before and all that stuff. And that's really cute. It's really tender and all that stuff. And I really like the way like they handled that scene. And then like some other ones too, where like they're collecting like they're like going to a music store to like get guitar strings and all that stuff. Also, it's like Joel does the song at the beginning. It's like if I would lose you, I'd surely lose myself. And that's basically the entire story that goes on. So it's like Abby and Ellie basically have the same exact story going on. They want to get revenge on the person that killed like the people that were closest to them. But the thing is, it's like Abby's the first one to strike because like well actually technically Joel is because like Joel kills her father and then like Abby kills Joel and then that like kind of triggers Ellie to go after her at that point and literally kill all of her friends. But like Abby is the first one to like really come to like the understanding of that like everybody's there. She's kind of lost her way and she's like she needs to bring humanity back in her life because otherwise then like the world's just gonna go to shit and there's not gonna be like nothing good there. So with all of that, like the way that Abby gets her redemption and like gains her humanity is by helping out one of the cult children and all that stuff. So there's two of them. There's like Kara and Lev. So Lev is a trans man, and I think they actually handled him very well. When you read descriptions, I could see them missing like a key detail with him. So like one of the things with that cult is that like at a young age they decided to be like wives to like some of the elders and all that stuff. So some people like when they heard it and when that character described to them, they say like the reason why that he decided to shave his head and like say that I'm a man and all that stuff is because of like not wanting to like marry and get pregnant and all that stuff. No, there when you're talking with like his sister, one of the things that she mentions is like a couple of years back before he was going to be married off and all that stuff, like he felt different and all that stuff. And it's like she says like, oh, I really hope that feeling of his would just go away and he'd be able to repress it and not really care about it. And then like when he shaves his head, which is forbidden by the cult itself, it's like the sister like loses it, screams at him and everything. But then like over time, like she grows to understand. And then basically as you meet up with them, it's like when you all escape and everything. And it's like the relationship that Abby has with like those two characters, I think is done very, very, very well. And then like the mother is like a very like like very much involved with the cult and is like a fanatic for it. And like Lev tries to break her out of the cult, but like, the mom like is hysterical and like tries to kill him and all that stuff. So he ends up killing her. So you have to go to that island and save him. And I think that entire sequence is done the best. I think everything with Abby and Lev is just like the strongest part of the game, and then Joel and Ellie, and then like Ellie's stuff towards the end, I think is done like fairly nice and all that. But there's kind of an issue where I feel like once like Abby gets to Ellie and all that stuff, and like they kind of meet up, and then like they both like try to kill each other and all that stuff. Like Abby's like thinking about killing Ellie, but then she just ends up not, because it's like, she realizes like, going this far with like Lev is with her at this point too. And it's like, you know what, it's not worth it. We need to live. We need to move on. And that's kind of what they do. So once you get to this part, it's a couple of years out. Dina and Ellie are like happily married on the farm, raising the kid that Dina was pregnant with and all that stuff. And then it's like Ellie still has like PTSD and like flashbacks, and she can't get over like Abby being able to get away and live still, because it's like that still haunts her very much. And basically like at this point, like Tommy got like crippled at some point, so like he cannot go after Abby itself. And it seems like maybe every now and then he still goes up and visits her and is like, hey, you promised me you'd go after her and get her and all this stuff. And it's like, it still very much like tears Ellie, and she has to make a choice whether she wants to be happy with Dina or she wants to go after Abby and kill her. And then she ends up going after Abby and trying to get revenge on her. So I think like unfortunately that last little segment doesn't really feel like a proper climax, but I think it's kind of important to the overall message that they really wanted to deliver. However, personally speaking, I wish they just ended it at the farm, and it was just like they ended it like right where Ellie was just like getting her bag and all that stuff, and then like Dina just comes down and it's like, hey, what are you doing? And I think if they just cut it off there and like, just like leaving you to ponder what choice that she would make there, I think that would have been a stronger finish for this game. Just because it's like the last gameplay segment that you go through, like where it's like Abby and Ellie fighting each other like at their maximum strength and everything, I think that's just like a much stronger ending than what they go with. Because basically what happens is Abby and Lev actually do find hints that the Fireflies are still alive, and then they just get captured and they're just kind of kept there for like a long time. And Ellie just finds out the area they're in. She goes there, beats up like a bunch of like, I think they're like slave traders or something like that. They're just a really messed up group. Kills basically all of them. And then she just gets there to find Abby. Abby's like, super weak at this point, just because like, she's been like a prisoner all this time. Same with Lev. And it's just like, she's like, no, I need to fight you. I need to kill you and all that stuff. So like, they just kind of like beat the crap out of each other. And then she loses 2 of her fingers and all that stuff. And then they just kind of like, it's kind of like Porco Rosso, if you've seen that, where it's like, it's just him and the other guy just beating each other until they just stop and like realize like, just go. So it's like basically the moral of the story. Revenge is bad. It's going to get you nowhere. And like they really, really hammer it in for Ellie, because like basically she loses her 2 fingers. She gets back to the farm. Surprisingly, there's no damage to the farm. Like no one decided to raid it. And, Dina's gone at that point, because like probably not safe for her to be there by herself at considering the state of the world's in at that point. And just like Ellie gets there to see just everything's all packed up and everything. And she tries to play the guitar, but because she's got 2 fingers now, she can no longer complete the song anymore. And she basically just completely lost herself because she was just too consumed by revenge and all that stuff. And I think that ending does like a really good job of like portraying what they're trying to convey here. It's just like the game is a bit long, and I think if they trimmed it down, it would have been a lot more effective. But it's just like when you keep hearing the same message over and over again, I think it's like you kind of get it already. But like I do think that like that final scene, because like of the artistry of Naughty Dog, like I think they did execute that extremely well. And it's like if you really want to get emotional attached to it, I think that last scene really does do it. Not so much the fight, because like gameplay wise, there's not really too much tension there, because it's The Last of Us. It's very much like quick time event, except not really. Though I will say this, like doing a narrative game like Last of Us compared to Heavy Rain, I think the way that Last of Us does is a lot better. So if people want to do movies that are games, I think taking the Last of Us route is going to be a lot better for that. So, I would encourage like people to look more into doing that, because like when you make compelling characters and like you do these actions and all that stuff, it does like make you feel a lot more for everything that's going on. And I feel like for a lot of the game, they try to do your best to not feel good when you're doing a lot of this. Because like early on, you don't really feel that because you don't really care about too much about like the people that you're killing and all that stuff. But like I think closer towards the end, and like after you've seen some of these people in different scenarios, you do care a little bit more about like everything that's going on there. Because especially because like the people that you're playing as, that you're with, they're tied a lot more to the environment around them, and I think that does make everything a lot more effective, especially in the context of a video game, because it's like you're not just watching it, but it feels like you're more of experiencing with it. And when it's able to like fire on all cylinders, I think it's like absolutely brilliant. Like I wasn't even playing; I was just watching this, but it's like you could just kind of understand the actions behind everything and just like really really feel that. So that stuff is good. Yeah, no, it's like I think from what I could tell, just like a little bit too long, a little bit tighter on that. But like I think the right story beats are there. I just think it needs to be just reconstructed a little bit. And so like honestly, funny thing is, if I had a little bit more time and they just rearranged it, I think this would have been a much better game. At least for most people to digest. I think with the way that it's told, for me, I think even if they rearranged it, it wouldn't change my perception on everything too much. But I think for most people going in and playing this game, I think the restructuring would have helped a lot with like really attaching themselves to these characters. Like with me, I don't really care for Joel. Like I think he's great and all that, but I'm like, yeah, that guy deserves to die. Like that was my thought when playing this. Like Joel, I'd be like, no, I love Joel. So I think because of like things like that, that would make a lot more sense. So it's like, you'd want to, like, not wanting to play the character that you're playing as, I think just does hurt a lot. Like, finding out, like, oh, I'm technically playing the main villain, but not really. That's the way that I look at this game. I feel like Ellie's more of the antagonist in this way more than Abby is. Because, like, Abby's just getting revenge because, like, Joel doomed humanity. And then, like, Ellie's just like, hey, my guy kind of doomed humanity, but I'm going to kill all your friends anyway. That's kind of what it's like. But it's like, you understand why she wants to do it and all that stuff. So it's like, I think that was like the view that they're really trying to do there. It's like, I do view like Abby's way more the protagonist of this game, way more than Ellie does. Because like Ellie just wants to kill for just like satisfaction's sake, and that's really it. And like Abby to an extent too as well, but it's just like, yeah, okay, this guy like literally just doomed everybody, and as long as he's still there and like another cure is possible with him being there, he may prevent Ellie from doing that again. But obviously at that point, Abby, the whole vaccine thing was already done at that point, so I wouldn't even say that's a valid excuse. Like both of their things are equally bad, but like one's just a lot more justified than the other. But yeah, no, overall, that's kind of my thoughts on this. So yeah, I mean, if this what I said about this did sound interesting enough, definitely watch the playthrough. I would encourage everyone to do that at the very least. Kind of make their own judgments for themselves. If you do get this, I would emphasize buy a used copy so you don't give money to Naughty Dog. But if you do want to support them for the work that they did on this, then obviously go ahead. But just do know that you are supporting a company that did a crap ton of abuse. But at the same time, if you are supporting it, you're supporting more representation and all that stuff. So it's a weird balance. It's honestly kind of strange to talk about in that sense. But yeah, no, overall, again, I think a lot of the flack the story gets, I think, is mostly unjustified and all that stuff. I mean, personally, I was able to empathize with all the characters that are there. I mean, if you like Joel a lot, maybe you won't. But yeah, dialogue strong, animation's good. Just trim down a little bit, change it up. Gameplay's not the best in the world. It's very average at best. So just keep that in mind when you're going and playing this. And yeah, that should be it. So comments below, let me know what you think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Have you played it? Are you interested in playing this? Did this make you want to play it more? All that stuff. Would you want a sequel? Personally, I'd say no, this game's done. This franchise is done. Move on to something else, or maybe just focus on a different point of events that were going on. Yeah, some things coming up. Of course, if you want to support the channel, check out the Teespring shop that you can always find in the link below. Tomorrow we are going to be having the Min Min stream, because I realize this can be uploaded tomorrow. But yeah, no, Min Min's going to be releasing on Monday, so I will be doing a stream with that. We'll be analyzing the patch as well. We'll figure out what we can with it. And so stay tuned to a lot more videos. Match critique stream is today, which is 7 o'clock. So be sure, if you want me to look at any videos, just tag me on Twitter with them or post them in the Duck Hunt Discord if you're in there. I'll look on there. And that should be everything. So with that said, take care of yourselves until the next one.